Why don't you just tell us about yourself, Mike?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Taha, and hello to folks who are watching. My name is Mike Douglas. I'm the executive director of the Mississauga Arts Council. And when you mentioned this was about artificial intelligence, and in particularly generative artificial intelligence, and the consequences on the environmental side are huge. As you probably know, I saw an interesting factoid the other day about one query to an AI consumed as much energy through the stream of support and supply as turning on a light bulb for 20 minutes. Mm. And you start to think about that and the amount of water that's needed to cool the servers in the server farms that are going to be populating our countryside. Fortunately, Canada has a great deal of countryside. And so more than any nation, probably, we can afford to have server farms where they're useful and not really occupying agricultural land.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that wonderful response, Mike. So how should the media industry kind of update its copyright protections to stop this kind of scraping and stealing by AI oligarchs?
I think one of the things that really hurts us, Taha, as a sector, as an arts sector, and you use the word arts, oftentimes with people, they expect to see somebody with a sort of a French painter vibe attached. And I'm talking the arts in terms of a poet to a filmmaker to a painter, a dancer, an actor, the whole gamut of our culture as it's expressed in performing arts and digital arts and the arts, period. The arts of creating original material. Mm-hmm. And so what every young professional artist needs to do is find out who are the umbrella groups for their particular art form and sign up for them, get involved with them, find a membership. They're students typically. There'll be some kind of a deal for young people to get involved, sign up for newsletters. Keep yourself informed with those who have a responsibility to look out for your interests. Because right now, SOCAN, which is a national group protecting the rights of music creators, people who have mechanical rights on their music, for example. Mm. They're telling them not to engage with AI. Mm-hmm. We have the Writers Union of Canada is very suspicious because if you submit your book digitally, which by the way is how they're submitted, then that means that AI has swept over and has taken that property that you've spent years creating, and it's now available for anybody who says, well, give me the latest book by Taha Alsaeed. And, no, I don't want to pay for it. I'll just ask for it in a prompt. This is completely disreputable, and it should be, and it is illegal. We do have copyright protection. What's the enforcement picture look like? And how is it possible that these agencies are able to steal like they are? Well, in part, it has to do with our ability, with something this new, at showing harm. Because in a court proceeding, they want to identify, okay, well, your rights to this material have been compromised. What was the cost to you in lost sales? It's tough to prove. Mm. Yeah, is there another way of approaching it, that it should never have been made available in the first place? And where is the protection for this? And when I had an opportunity to listen to the Minister of Heritage, and in my opinion, he is not taking the AI robbery of resources seriously enough. Mm. And so everyone who can write a legible, readable email needs to find out who their allies are. Who is your member of parliament? A lot of people I talk to, especially younger people, don't know. It's like, I can cruise along on youth. No, you can't. You're either in the game or you're going to get paved by the game. Mm-hmm. So please find out who your reps are and drop them an email that says, I'm extremely concerned about my future being compromised completely by AI robbers. And unfortunately, most of them are based in the United States, and the United States seems to be ruled by a crook. So we've got real issues here. Okay. The understood morality that guides so much of our behavior for the great majority of people who are good-hearted, well-intentioned, and follow the law.
Yeah.
They can be victimized now. So they need to be known. And, we run an organization with, 400 or so individual artists, and then about 50 or 60 groups that have hundreds of members, okay? Or a dozen members or hundreds. So we end up, it's about 2,500 professional artists we're keeping an eye on in some way or another at the Mississauga Arts Council. So we're a charity dedicated to growing the arts and the economy which sustains artists. That's our focus. We're interested in creating gigs. So if gigs are being stolen, that's of interest to us. And it's of interest, I would hope, and I know it is to those who can, the other arts councils in Canada. There's, maybe 30 in Ontario, and I don't know how many there are in the other provinces, but there is some form of that across the country. If you're in Winnipeg or you're in Vancouver or wherever you are, there's an arts council around somewhere that you should be relating to, because our separation into distinct art forms, distinct art form interest groups, advocacy groups, coalitions, collectives, makes us far weaker than we should be. So while you've got micro attention to your backyard, your arts interest, you don't have macro, because we don't have really what we need in this country is a national organization capable of disseminating trustworthy information down to arts groups and membership across the country and advocating on behalf of their interests nationally. It should be Canada Council. It is not Canada Council, and that is a problem for all of us. And that's where I'm going, is we need a robust, relevant, and engaged Canada Council, because there is no other engine available. If we had something else that was more closely connected to the arts, I'd be all over it. But Canada Council is in the game. They just need to expand their portfolio to include sustainability of the arts and culture ecosystem across this country, because it's at risk right now.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of insight. You mentioned a case involving Meta, where there were a couple novelists that couldn't win a trial because they lacked, tangible evidence of damage from these AI oligarchs. And so, can you talk more about the legal definitions or frameworks that should be expanded and to ensure that creatives have access to legal protections?
So from a writer's standpoint, it's very, you can imagine how difficult that would be to prove damages. So in that case, the judge sided with the authors, but he had no remedy because they could not prove damages. So the data that surrounds your work is gold now, because it becomes proof, and any legal case comes down to, as I understand it, what would a reasonable person judge to be the case? What would a reasonable person land on? Whether it's a yes or a no, or a guilty or not guilty, or a judgment for value, what would a reasonable person come up with as an answer to the question that they're posed? Well, they need data. You need to know what your sales are. For example, let's use the authors. What are your expected sales based on your last 2-3 books? Well, we did this much up to this period of time, so we could expect this to be the case going forward with the new book. So you need to create, and it's useful for every artist, of course, because this is, building a case in a court circumstance is not unlike building a case for a grant or a job application. It has to do with both quantifying and qualifying what you do. And as more and more of this is done where people don't see each other, this is all done via email.
Yeah.
Having that in sort of credible, readable, and original. And when I say that to artists, what I have come to expect based on the reference letters that have been coming in from artists is that they're using AI to tell their story in terms of protecting themselves from AI.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have an issue with AI, and it's going to have everybody sound like they have a PhD, but they don't really necessarily know what's around the corner or what day it is.
Yeah.
So our approach on this is know your market, know your, just coming back to your question, I don't have anything more than that to offer on that question. Preparedness for court has to do with facts, evidence that you can prove. And it is very much involved with what has happened before. So you can build on it to make your case about damages going forward. And I think it's interesting to read these cases. And they're not hard to find on the internet.
I've had a lot of guests so far on the podcast that kind of talk about using AI in certain ways to kind of elevate their art and that kind of thing. So I think your comments will be really helpful in terms of kind of bringing those two puzzle pieces together so you kind of get the bigger picture. So
yeah, I hear you. And, we're lazy. People are, I hear the term efficient. Yeah. So fine. It's more efficient of your time, but you didn't learn a thing. By having AI come in and describe who you are and what you're doing to someone else, you didn't learn. You saw what the generic expertise would be applied to your data.
Yeah.
Okay. Who you are, what you're capable of needs to be, my opinion, the culmination of your learning. And so I'm not very sympathetic to people who use AI to write an introduction letter, because that tells me that you're dependent. And it also doesn't give me the real you. It gives me this, conglomeration of who you could be. So for us, you apply for something, we sense that it's AI, and, it's, I know it's brilliant, but sometimes it's so brilliant, it ain't you. Yeah. So we're tuned into that, and we are here to help artists grow. And one of the ways they grow is by investing in their own capacity to work, their own skill set. So by all means, use AI for research. Great. But put what you learn together your way around who you are. Because ultimately, I think because it's so easy to do AI, it will become really obvious. And so the differentiator will be authenticity. Authenticity already has a huge role in perception of political value. And it's always had value in the arts. This is an interesting shift with AI for sure. Anyway, I know you have other questions, so let's go.
And you cited a specific case of the Prime Minister, a deep fake of the Prime Minister hawking like cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And so what are some controls that maybe the Prime Minister needs to get on to be implemented across kind of social media in order to protect against those kind of deep fakes?
Well, I'm not sure which letter, but the letter where I mentioned what's going on in University of Chicago to mask your work so that it can't be pirated. That's something every artist should be looking into. Okay, how do I defeat the AI plunder? And this is, so that's step one. Investigate protections. And that's where your umbrella groups should be on top of this stuff. So in the case of the University of Chicago and their, I think it was called Nightshade program, very encouraging, because it means your visual artworks are protected. Now, what are they doing for music? Well, you got to look around because it is absolutely available for the oligarchs to track where the art came from, because they can sure as hell track where you've been online, and they can track the source of anything they own that you've used. So the idea of it being difficult is dishonest at best. So they can absolutely track origins, and that is what we have to demand. There has to be transparency. The sort of lobbyists in the arts have landed on a term called art. They need authentication, they need remuneration, and they need transparency. And that is something that the government of Canada has accepted largely, I believe. There's an organization called CDEC. It's also CEDC in English. And they are the principal advocates for artist rights, okay? Ownership rights, creative diversity in culture. Forgotten what their acronym stands for, but they are worth looking into. They publish great information. There is homework attached to the AI file, folks. And for us, admittedly, it's side of the desk. I'm doing my best to sort of off hours kind of thing to get into that, because we have a vital charity that we're running and making things happen. So we have to find time, make time for it. And I'm going to. I was at a session about musicians. And so, ideas are so inexpensive and fun. It's realization of same that is a bigger deal. So we're looking at, okay, so imagine this. What if we had a bank, an arts bank, a business development bank? Why not a arts development bank? And in it, what you have as assets as an artist is your work and the rights to your work. And so you vest it in this entity, and those rights become part of your collateral, part of your asset base, part of what you have to contribute. And then what is also a part of that bank is that your material is available to people to sign up for, so that we could have a situation where access to Canadian music is not available on Spotify. To take your music off Spotify is meaningless other than exposure. It is a ripoff. For you to get, I believe so imagine $1, $1. So then imagine what a penny looks like. That's 0.01. What you get from one stream on AI is 0.0017. So we're talking 1,000th of a dollar, a fraction of a penny per play. So what difference does it make if you're on Spotify?
Yeah.
Get off Spotify when we've got an alternative and have a Canadian values-based arts channel that is administered by an arts bank that is honorable, it pays people decently, and the public knows they can trust it from an ethics, how it was created. It wasn't stolen. Let's just start there. So that's what I'm noodling about. Like, how in the world would I, help make that happen? I don't know, but that's my next call this morning.
Can I do anything to help kind of create something like that?
I think we do this, again, let me go over the next few humps, because I'll be back in touch with, I just had a conversation. I've had conversation with staff at the Ministry of Innovation and Artificial Intelligence. I want to get into Canada Council at a higher level. I want to talk to the Heritage Minister for Canada. I'm talking to the Office of Tourism, Culture and Gaming in Ontario, but I need help. But I am asking you to do things, Taha. I am asking you to reach out to your colleagues and say, learn about who your umbrella groups are. Give them your support. Find out about relevant laws. And ask Google, who is protecting their music from AI? Get going and then share their info. And so if you're a conduit for info, become one, have a web page. We've got one now on AI that we just started. I mean, it's like our number 4 website, but it's called AI and CR8RS.net. AI and creators.net, we call it. And we're gathering some information that's relevant, and we want it to become a bit of a free archive. And, check us out, because all my AI letters are there, and hopefully attracting better and bigger stuff from others that we can share, because everybody's got a job, so to speak. And AI has come as this relatively, newish channel. And the only reason it hasn't been dealt with is because people in this ecosystem are running to keep up with what they're normally doing to stay afloat, and then have this threat come in from left field, 3 years ago, let's say. Then, 3 years is a long time. So what the hell? So all they've managed to do is protect the rights in theory. The practice is lagging, and everybody you're talking to needs to make themselves known. If you're serious about a career in arts and culture, then it's not a gimme. The future for music publishing, yikes. The future for writing books, challenging. Was challenging 10 years ago too. It's more challenging maybe now, because the thing that isn't understood and don't have data on is the degree to which people like you are going to get on AI and just get lost in it. Just go down that rabbit hole and create and fall in love with what you're doing. And I want to, give me a Mona Lisa with a mustache. Boom. How bad example, but this is going to become a novelty and a distraction, and it's going to be a rabbit hole for, I suspect, a few years. And what's going to happen is the dedicated few are going to prevail, because they're doing their homework, they're protecting their work as best they can, and they're finding allies. We need allies. So every elected politician in this country needs to get messages saying, what are you doing to protect us from AI? And it helps if you have a clue yourself. So politicians go through a lot of letters, right? The ones that have some backup to them go to a different tier. Someone reads them. And if they've got backup and they make a good case, then there's a good chance it's going to be précied and, informed to the relevant politician. And every politician needs to know that the arts are at risk due to AI again. And they need to get into it, because the arts are crucial in realizing our national identity, who we are. The moment they say, who are you in Canada, right, from somewhere else, what do they expect to see? They expect to see some bands. They expect to see some artwork. They expect to see landmarks, architecture, character, movies. Who are we? Well, we're pretty damn special. And we're doing a great job of running a multicultural country, probably the best in the world. So that's not nothing. That's a big deal. And so how are we celebrating that? Not with picking at each other, but how are we coming together and saying, we're this and it's worth protecting? What do we do about it? Go to your arts groups and ask them, and keep asking, become informed activators, and then learn enough to become an advocate on your own. I don't know about this stuff. I just see an absence of leadership, and I want to see something happen so that our artists aren't at risk. Well, that's a big ask. But hey, I get paid. I got a job to do. I've just expanded it a little.
Thank you for your work and protecting the future of our careers.